business. Even though I really appreciate it, Glenn. He saw you were involved and wanted to be supportive, and we appreciate that.
I actually, to be honest, I didn't know, or I may haven't forgotten. To be perfectly honest, I didn't remember until Glenn texted me and said, "Oh, we're going to be." I was like, because I accept these things, and then as soon as I do, I forget them.
Yeah.
Until I look at the calendar, and I was like, and I looked at it, I said, "I wonder what is this?" And then literally an hour afterwards, Glenn texted me and said, "Hey, we're going to be." Oh.
So you just say yes to pretty much anything that comes across the desk.
No, I don't. But
no, I'm sure you. Of course you don't.
But once I say yes, it's like, okay, that's done. Move on. What's the next thing? So.
Well, we are now live, and I see several hundred people jumping in. So welcome, everybody. My name is Aaron Price. I'm the CEO of the New Jersey Tech Council. Thrilled to have you join us today with our conversation with Al Roker. If you're unfamiliar with the New Jersey Tech Council, we are an organization that focuses on empowering the entrepreneurs and innovators of the New Jersey region. We put on a lot of webinars lately, also lots of in-person events, which hopefully we can do sooner than later. But I'm really excited today to get to know Al Roker's entrepreneurial side and his business side. This episode today is brought to us by Guardian Data Destruction. Glenn, before we get started with Al, maybe you can introduce yourself. I know you're a recent member of the council. We're thrilled to have you join us. Really appreciate you sponsoring today's event. And just tell us a little bit about Guardian.
Sure. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Aaron, for allowing us to be part of the NJTC's webinar on entrepreneurship. I started Guardian 12 years ago based on an idea and some forward thinking in the IT space. Guardian Data Destruction is proof that New Jersey is a fertile ground for tech companies and good ideas. In most businesses today, they are focused on acquisitions of new equipment. What do we need? Laptops, servers, firewalls, all the equipment that companies need to grow and become more efficient. That's the sexiest part, picking out the latest and greatest IT equipment. Well, Guardian Data Destruction focuses on the other side of the process. What do you do with the equipment when you no longer need it? How do you responsibly dispose of it? How do you destroy the data? How confident is that the data is destroyed? Gartner reports that 30% of all data breaches occur from not properly handling end-of-life assets. Guardian Data Destruction specializes in the wiping or shredding of hard drives. We eliminate any and all data on any type of IT device. Then you can rest assured once the data is eliminated that the equipment will be responsibly recycled or repurposed. We work through VARs and ITAD companies to provide them with a turnkey solution of all types of immediate destruction and end-of-life services. This allows the VARs and ITAD companies to resell our services and generate new revenue streams and provide their clients with a true cradle-to-grave solution for any IT device. Guardian is proud to be New Jersey-based and provides nationwide coverage, and we are recognized as the most secure and compliant and absolute data destruction in the United States. To learn more, we've included a free download of our data destruction guide for all participants. And as a fellow entrepreneur, I'm honored to sponsor this insightful webinar with Al Roker. Al is a successful entrepreneur, a media icon who is dedicated to his family, and most important, he's a great role model to all his children. We are looking forward to Al sharing his experiences on his success and about his new book. So let me close by saying thank you and letting us be part of today's webinar. And we can't wait to hear what Al has to say.
Thanks so much, Glenn. I really appreciate that. We'll check back in with you possibly towards the end of the show, but we could say bye for now, so you can turn off your video. But we appreciate you sponsoring today.
Oh.
I know it's sad, isn't it? It is sad.
Although I will say, Glenn, I got a little nervous when you started talking about end-of-life assets. Now that I'm in my 60s and all that's going on, I'm like, wow, what's going on here? Cradle to grave, look out. Oh. Glenn's gonna wipe my assets. I'm gonna wipe my assets with him.
I think that is the tagline that they go with.
Data destruction. It almost sounds like a WWE kind of thing. Oh, data destruction. Oh! Love it.
It's very aggressive.
It is very aggressive. I like it.
You know what they're gonna do.
I think you need to have like a mascot, Glenn, like some sort of like angry bulldog or something.
You know, the way we kind of phrase it is that we're actually the undertakers of the data and the IT world.
There you go.
There it is.
Okay, we have to, and I know, Aaron, you didn't necessarily want to, but I believe in full transparency, and because I think it's important, because I don't want anybody saying anything. When did I accept this offer? It was like 2 months ago, I believe. Didn't we
Yeah,
set
maybe a
this
month
up?
ago. Yeah.
A month ago. This is before I had no idea that, in fact, Glenn was involved in this. But since this has happened, his wonderful son, Wes, and my daughter, Courtney, got engaged. But there had nothing, my accepting this had nothing to do with it. Wes is a lovely young man, no surprise after meeting Glenn and Barbara. But just in case anybody somehow puts it together that Wes and my daughter, and they said, well, and because first of all, I'm not getting paid for this, so it's not, but just in full disclosure, and it was before I knew about the end of life assets. So there's
To be clear, you agreed before Glenn was involved.
Right.
Glenn heard you were involved, obviously, wanted to be supportive and said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we were in this together?" So no, there's certainly no back channeling. It is the first time Glenn and I have actually had a chance.
Yes, right. And
we appreciate that.
Yeah, but we'll let all of you listening know where they're registered. So.
Yeah, well, I think Glenn said that we were going to do tickets to the wedding is included. Anyway, thanks, Glenn. It sounds like you and Al should talk a little bit more about the awesome mascot you're going to end up with here. You got plenty more years ahead for that. But thanks again for your support. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So to those of you who are joining us, remember, I know some of you have been here before, but jump into the chat, introduce yourself, share what you're working on, share where you are physically. While we're all disconnected, it's a way to drive a little bit more connection between us. I monitor the Q&A. So as we go, I will do my best to weave in your questions into the discussion. So use the Q&A specifically to ask those questions. Use the chat to network with one another. Everything's welcome. So Al, a lot of people.
A lot going on here. A lot of multitasking.
It's a lot, and I don't have the setup you've got going. You don't want me to change this background. It's a disaster behind me, but we make it work. It's a lot of fun.
This is a fake background too. It's not really here. It is. I'm just joking.
Yeah. So, and hello, Donna from Northern New Jersey, our first one.
Hi, Donna.
And this is a family affair, by the way. We've got my parents, my in-laws, my kids.
Hi, Joseph.
Watching, plus the rest of the New Jersey Tech Council community. But there were a lot of people who were very excited to see you here, obviously because they know you from television. But
and because they're going crazy too, stuck at home.
They heard about some guy with funny glasses was going to be here, so they figured why not. So tell me about Roker Entertainment. What drove you to start that business? And for those who don't know, what you actually do.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly what I do, but I started back in 1992, a production company. It started as Al Roker Productions. It basically just to launch a website. I was just very interested in the World Wide Web, and it was one of these things where even NBC wasn't quite sure what this was all about, and I said I'd like to start a website. Is it okay? And they went, okay. And so I started a website, and at just about the same time, I started doing some Food Network specials. And after the first couple that I hosted, I asked the general manager of the Food Network if I could produce them, because I thought I think I could do this. I did a little sidebar. I never really wanted to be on television. I was going to be, I wanted to be a writer or a producer. I didn't want to be on TV. So
why not?
I thought, well, because I didn't fit the mold of it just wasn't something that really interested me. In fact, I went to SUNY Oswego. In fact, I saw one of your people commenting there from Oswego. I went to SUNY Oswego, and I took a television performance class, and my department chairman, the terrific guy, the late Lou O'Donnell, said after my first class, he said, "Roker, you have the perfect face for radio." And so I really had no plans of being on TV. And ironically, he's the one who put me up for a job doing weekend weather at the end of my sophomore year at this local station in Syracuse, the CBS station. And one thing led to another. But I had no intentions of being on TV, let alone a TV weather person. So when I had the chance to produce these shows, I kind of jumped at it, and one special led to another, and all of a sudden, in 1994, we were off to the races, producing TV shows for different cable networks, some networks as well, branded content, stuff online, digital. We've just kind of rolled with the punches.
Did you see yourself as an entrepreneur? Did you see it as opportunities are coming in and I just want to play around?
Yeah, I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur. And I'm still one of these people, and everybody talks about, oh, your brand, your personal brand. And I don't like that. It's like, I guess it's a commodity, and I suppose that's one way to look at it. But I just, to me, it's very impersonal. And I guess I understand why people use the terminology, but for a company, I get it. For a person, I'm still kind of like when people, well, my personal brand. I think, well, aren't you just precious?
Well, so are you saying then that the person that people get on TV is that's the authentic Al Roker? There's no.
Yeah, look, for the most part, I always tell this story. My daughter hates it. My middle girl, who's in college right now, and this was about 7 or 8 years ago. Her room was a mess. I mean, everybody who thinks that, and this is going to be kind of sexist, and so don't hold it against me. But look, we always think girls are, they're neater than boys. I'm here to tell you, I think girls are messier than boys, to be honest. And my son is a neat freak. He's 17. His room is neat as a pin. He showers 3 times a day. He's crazy. My daughter's room was a mess. And I just went off on her. I mean, it's like, this room's a pigsty. All of a sudden, she bursts into tears. And she goes, this isn't fair. America sees the happy Al Roker. They never see this Al Roker, So, the guy you see on TV isn't always Mr. Sunshine. But, I think I'm relatively optimistic. And so, yeah, I kind of go along with the flow.
Yeah. I mean, I think in line with that idea of humanity behind the brand, Al Roker Entertainment produces some branded content, and I know social impact is an important area to you. In fact, we recently launched something John and I were speaking about, is the New Jersey Tech Council's Clean Tech Alliance and an impact challenge to give away $50,000 to a startup that's helping reduce energy usage and looks build a cleaner planet and thinks about the future of work. So how does social impact play a role in the kinds of content that you produce with Al Roker Entertainment?
We go all the way back to producing, and this was long before this pandemic, and exposing the inequities and the food insecurities. We did a special that was sponsored by ConAgra and carried on all the NBC owned and operated stations and another 200 NBC stations about food insecurity and our children. 1 in 4 kids go to bed not sure where their next meal is coming from in this country. That is astounding, appalling, and embarrassing in a country this wealthy and this powerful. And I think people think of it in these poor urban settings or rural America. It's happening everywhere, and places and people that you wouldn't think. And this pandemic has just laid bare that. So we've done that. We're working right now with Cerner creating and No Vet Alone creating Life Aid, which does looks at the struggles of first responders and veterans. We're doing something with Northwell Health on Memorial Day, where we're honoring the healthcare heroes who are working on the front lines. So we've been very fortunate. We've done work. My parent company, Comcast, that owns NBC Universal. We've done a lot of stuff on sustainability with them. So we've worked hard to try to not only do well as a business, but to do good.
Yeah. How much do those purpose-driven efforts, how much is it, are you selective about the projects that you want to work on? I mean, at the end of the day, you're building a business. So I'm curious, do you seek the things that resonate with you?
Yeah, we try to, look, I could be a much bigger company doing other types of programming, both in a branded space and in the cable and broadcast areas. And we chose not to because, when we started out, I wanted to be able, my kids to be able to watch the shows that we produced and not be embarrassed by them.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we could have been a lot bigger. My CFO would be, I think, a little happier if I kind of lowered my bar a little bit, but I just, it's not worth it to me.
How has this pandemic affected your views on those issues in particular?
Well, I think, again, we look at, we were working with Northwell Health before this pandemic hit, or was just barely bubbling on the surface, internationally. It hadn't really hit our shores yet. And so, we feel good about the idea that whether I can tell you it wasn't by design, but we were ahead of the curve in this, and in highlighting these healthcare heroes. And it hits home for me. My sister is a nurse, and nurse practitioner, and works in Northeastern Ohio. My brother, my baby brother, is the CEO of New York City Health and Hospitals Metropolitan Hospital, and has been working 7 days a week for the last 2 months. So it gives you a certain amount of pride to know that you're working on programming that will make a difference and have an impact.
Has the pandemic shifted your own personal priorities at all?
Yeah, I think so, in that you realize how life changes on a dime. I mean, we've had, and in my own life, I've had those moments, for anybody in the audience who's lost a parent, lost a loved one, that you realize how quickly things change. But this, really brings home how much, and when you look at, from a planetary standpoint, how quickly the planet can heal itself when we're not part of it. Yeah. When we are kept in our homes and kept off our roads and kept off our beaches, how quickly it starts to heal, and hopefully we make some sort of a change. We can't sustain a zero economy, but when we come back, do we look at how important is it to jump on that airplane and travel to do a meeting or a conference? How many Uber rides do we really need to take, or could we ride a bike or take a subway? I mean, before this, I was bike riding in from, I'm a big believer in that last mile. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I live, a few miles from 30 Rock, so I can bike in and home each day, weather permitting. But, I think, I'm hoping that people are going to be looking and re-examining what they do and how they do it.
How do Ronald asked a question that I think is relevant here, which is, how does technology and entrepreneurship play a role in solving some of the social issues, and in particular these sustainability issues, as it relates to the costs and inequities and also inefficiencies? How do you think entrepreneurship and technology play a role in solving some of these problems?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to, after this, are going to re-examine how much of a footprint do you really need from an office standpoint, from a travel standpoint. I mean, look, we've been doing the Today Show from 30 Rock. I'm doing it from up here, upstate New York. So is Savannah. With a minimum amount of footprint. It's so. Look, do we want to get back to more of a normal? Yes, but I think when we look at it, how many trips do you need to take? How many conferences do you have to go to? what do you really need to do your job? And I think a lot of people are discovering, I mean, and look, there's the issues of childcare and, making sure your kids are being taught and all that. But I think the number of people I've talked to, they believe they're actually more efficient during this period.
Yeah.
You're stripped down and just doing your job. And again, if you've got younger kids, it's more difficult. Look, I'm great because I've got a 17-year-old and his school starts online, with video at 9:30, and I don't see him until 3:30 in the afternoon. Yay!
I doubt you're that truly excited about that idea, because it's clear that you enjoy spending a lot of time with him and your family in general.
I absolutely do, but alone time's a good thing too.
Alone time's a good thing. You started out though talking about one of your early inspirations and ideas was a cooking show. Now you're doing a cooking show on Instagram. How is cooking? What's the narrative there that you find so attractive and relatable?
I think everybody cooks. Well, or if they don't, it's funny. Food Network and the Cooking Channel, I think more than 50 or 60% of the people don't cook what they see. And when I started this, during this pandemic, I was just, I do something. And my wife, Deborah, said, why don't you get Nick involved? And I was like, look, that's going to take more time. And then, if for those of you who are married, you get that look from your spouse. It's like, hey, it's a great idea. I'm going to get Nick involved.
That is a great idea.
It's a great idea. Glad I thought of it. And he's enjoyed it. And it's been fun. And I think what's been nice about it, when I read the comments, people, get some inspiration from it. Maybe I could do this because I'm not doing these complicated recipes. This is not fine dining. It's mostly sautéing, it's roasting. There are three menu items. It's a protein, a vegetable, perhaps a starch, and a salad. That's it every day.
What do you think on Al Roker, the brand, right? I mean, the number of people who texted and reached out to me about how excited they were to get a chance to talk a little more intimately with you or hear from you more intimately, it was incredible. Obviously, you resonate with a huge percentage of the globe, especially the country. Why do you think that is? You've had a long staying power. Lots of people come and gone. You're still going strong. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's like Aaron. I don't know if you like sausage. I like sausage. I don't really want to see how sausage is made. I don't think about it too much, but because once you start to try to break it down, it just kind of falls apart. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I think I've been very fortunate in that I've worked with really good people. From my days at WNBC in New York, I worked with some of the greats. I mean, Chuck Scarborough and Sue Simmons and Marv Albert and Len Berman. On the Today Show, I've worked with, everybody from, Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric and Jane Pauley, Tom Brokaw, Matt Lauer, Ann Curry. The list goes on. Yeah. Of really good broadcasters. So, it's hard not to do well. I like being part of an ensemble. Everybody contributes, everybody. And so I think that's been the secret. I've really been very fortunate that I've worked with some really terrific people.
I mean, in entrepreneurship, the CEO and the founder is often the face of the company, but there's always a very strong team behind that individual. How important do you think it is in your case, when you just went through a lengthy list of teammates, that the team behind the scenes is as focused and supportive and on the same page?
Look, like again, in the case of like the Today Show and the third hour of Today, and we've got unbelievable behind the scenes talent. the producers, the writers, the technical crew, all those folks, I mean, are all world-class folks, and have shown to be so more so now when, they've got all these handicaps working from home, and it's really kind of amazing. And at Roker Entertainment, we've got, no less, I mean, from our, the folks who run the company. I mean, I've got this fantastic president, Tracy Brennan, who's been terrific. We've got a great financial person in Karen Franklin. John Burke is our social guy. We've got a media guy named Ricky Day, who's fantastic. Simone Moore runs our office. Asha Smith is this terrific research and just young person who knows exactly what to do. So we because I'm a lot of times all over the place. I'm, besides doing my Al Roker stuff, I'm doing the Today Show. And
writing books on Broadway. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, I've been on Broadway. We've got a new book coming out. So I've got to have people running this thing because otherwise it would all fall apart.
Yeah, but the business, Al Roker Entertainment, though, it seems like was set up and was doing quite well before the pandemic, and now has even seen more business. Why do you?
Yeah,
think
I don't know. I think because we are, we've always had an information. We've always been kind of an information-based company. I mean, we do entertainment stuff. We've got a couple of projects that I can't really talk about right now, but are scripted and entertainment-based. But I think people know that, we have a certain amount of integrity. And so, we're finishing up a science-based series for an international company. We're doing a number of, as we've mentioned before, health-based initiatives, because people know that we're nimble, we're small, so that we can move very quickly and we can pivot quickly.
Yeah. Lori commented, and I think she is completely accurate here, that she said people like Al because he's genuine, he's a real person, he's willing to show the good and the bad. Too many people are afraid to show their weaknesses. I think that level of authenticity is ultimately what resonates with so many people and does give you the staying power, even if you're perhaps a little too humble to want to think about it or go there.
Well, look, listen, I try, and we're all human, and nobody's, and Lord knows I'm not perfect. I have many failings that I try to work on. My family keeps me humble. You try to be a good dad, try to be a good husband. You don't always succeed. You try to do that work-life balance thing, and I've made mistakes, but you try to learn from them and grow from them. And at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? It is your family, but sometimes you lose sight of that. We get, we get egos, we get excited about projects, and you can forget. And every now and then you need to get knocked back on your heels so that you realize what's important.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's dig in there, right? Your new book is You Look So Much Better in Person, coming out, I believe, over the summer.
Yeah, July 28th.
Okay. So true stories of absurdity and success. Why this book and why now?
Because I think people think, those of us on TV, that there was this kind of straight line, and it's not. And the title is something that it kind of keeps you humble. When before pre-pandemic, folks know, I would go out to the Today Show Plaza, shake hands, do the weather from out there. And invariably every day, one person would say, "Oh my gosh, you look so much better in person." And I really do believe that they feel that that's a compliment. And you don't want to be ingracious. So thank you. Yeah, but you realize the undercurrent there is, on TV, you're frightening small children. In person, you're not quite the gargoyle we see on television. So I've always loved that. And we were trying to find a title, and I was talking with my editor, and she goes, I was telling her that story. She goes, "That's the title of your book."
Yeah. So what do you, I mean, first of all, to your point about the straight line, I mean, that is the entrepreneurial journey. I think that's the successful individual and the team journey, right? It's often talked about in the tech world. You have some success, some high, and then you're in the trough of sorrow on the graph, and then you have some other success, and then they're like, oh, is this going to work? And that cycle continues, and hopefully it trends up and to the right, but it is for sure not a straight line.
Yeah, and I think that's life. I think
life.
Nobody has this perfect life. I mean, that's the problem with social media, especially like Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all these other things. Who can keep track? But that you only see the best things and not the real world. And that's what the book is. Just more. It's kind of a cross between the personal and the professional. It's the things I've learned and the things that have happened that have changed me in my professional life.
So what are some of those stories of success or absurdity?
Well, I remember early on in my career, getting chewed out by the boss and crying. I was in my first job and learning that there's nothing wrong with a good cry. And, even if it's in front of your boss, but you got to know when and where, and how, but that showing vulnerability is not a bad thing. I mean,
can you think of the last time you've cried at work?
This morning, actually, we had a story about this little girl who became the first adopted baby to be named the Gerber baby. And it just so happened it was a white family, but the little girl is black, adoptive family. And I happen to have my oldest daughter is adopted, and I have siblings who are adopted, and it really touched me, and I got a little misty.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing to let people know that you're human.
Yeah. What about some stories of absurdity?
One of the I had a news director, and it's not so much absurdity as much as there's kind of a quasi before this happened. You're too young to remember there was a kind of a terrorist kind of situation in Washington called the Hanafi Muslim takeover, and they took over City Hall in D.C. and a couple of other places. And I was brand new at the station in Washington. I'd just come from Syracuse, New York, and there was literally nobody left in the newsroom. And the news director said the city councilman got shot, who went on to become the mayor, and he goes, Roker, you got to go to the hospital. Now, I'm a weather guy. I do gardening stories. I've never done a hard news story like that. I had to get on the back of a motorcycle with a courier and ride through traffic and get there and do the, interview the doctor and do all this stuff, to take part of the press conference, get back on the motorcycle, come back. It was like, what am I doing? Why am I here? This was literally my second week at work. And the same guy called me into his office a couple of months later and said, listen, I think you're a great talent, but I don't think you're cut out to do weather. I would rather have you be our kind of theater movie critic. So think about it over the weekend and let me know. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I finally came to the conclusion I don't want to do theater reviews and movie reviews, and I like doing the weather. And I was prepared, and you got to remember, this was like 1975. And so I was prepared to go in. This is before pre-cell phones. And I got into the office, and I'm trying to get up to the nerve to go into the news director's office. And when I hit the door, they said, did you hear what happened? He got fired. Our news director got fired. So it was like, I lived to see another day.
Wow. But I think that the critical part of that story was that you said yes to the opportunity to, okay, I will go be the news guy, even though it's not what I do. Right.
No. Yeah. And that's part of, in the book, I talk about that. I said, a lot of us say no. Say yes. A couple of years ago, I interviewed William Shatner, and it was maybe a year and a half ago or so. I said, Bill, what's the secret to your success? You're about to turn 87 years old. You're busier than ever. Well, Al, here's what I feel. I never say no. I always say yes. What's the worst thing that can happen? I mean, you've heard my album.
And that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot. We talk about it with my family. There's a way to get a guaranteed no, which is not ask the question.
Yeah. And I try to tell my kids that you're going to fail. Things are going to go wrong. But without failure, there can be no success. Our greatest scientific discoveries, throughout the ages, they were not discovered on the first shot, the first try. They were a series of failures that lead to success.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in that.
I mean, there's endless stories of founders trying to raise capital. For instance, Howard Schultz with Starbucks. I think he pitched, I forget the exact number now, but something like over 200 investors before the first one said yes. So if that element of perseverance and determination didn't stay, a lot of products obviously would never see their way to market. What do you think has been the primary contributor to your success?
Well, look, and I think people who don't acknowledge this part of it are fooling themselves. A lot of it has to do with luck, or opportunity presenting itself at the right time. You look back over your career and you say, if this hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened, then that wouldn't have happened, and you just go down the line. If I didn't have, going all the way back to my college professor putting me up for that first job, I don't know what I would be doing today, to be honest. But trying to, I think I try to be open to anything and just go with the flow. That you don't know. I always marvel at these people who have these 5-year plans. Like, seriously, really? You think I consider it a success if I know what I'm going to be making for dinner tonight. That's about as good as I can get. I find that it's so much of it is luck, but being open to the opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah.
That's
the willingness to lean in and say yes.
Yeah. It's that somebody for some reason did something that presented an opportunity for you, and here you are.
Would you encourage your children to go into entrepreneurship or media?
I would encourage my children to do what they want. I have, look, and also here's what I would say. And I'm proud of all of my children. They're remarkable people. And most of that is because of their mother. But my oldest girl, Courtney, struggled in college, and I don't think she would be ashamed to admit that. And a light bulb went off, and it was her who said, "You know what, Dad? I think I want to go to culinary school." And she had always been interested in, even when she was 6, she would go out into our garden, and she had researched edible flowers and knew which flowers to pick and decorate the plate. She was always interested in food, and now she's a successful food person. She's worked in fine dining in New York. She's worked in catering. Right now, she's part of a very entrepreneurial company based in New Jersey as a food stylist and recipe writer and food creator. So, but the traditional path was not for her.
Yeah.
And she blazed that. And I'm so proud of her for that. So I think it's a long way around of saying that, you need to listen to your kids. What they may not follow a traditional path. And so do I say, oh, go be an entrepreneur? Oh, go be in media? No, I want them to go be who they are.
Yeah.
In this business, you know, people, oh, it's going to be the next Oprah. It's going to be the next, you know, Peter Jennings or the next. No, there are no next whatever. They're them.
Yeah.
They being them.
Yeah.
Be you.
I mean, I wonder if you see, certainly in entrepreneurship, if there's not a very rich and deep level of passion around an industry, there's no real chance of success. And I think a lot of people see the headlines that look great about companies, you know, worth billions of dollars and think this looks like an interesting career. But if you're not committed, you've got no real chance. And I would think the same is true in media. There's people who think the celebrity's all great, but if you're not as passionate about the industry, that you don't stand a chance. Does that hold true?
I think so. I mean, I think, look, it's, and I'm going to sound like the old guy in the room, because I am the old guy in the room. But, you know, these Instagram stars and TikTok stars, and whatever they are, you know, influencers. And yeah, there's some of them making, you know, big money, but most of them aren't.
Yeah.
You know, and would give their eye teeth to be on traditional broadcast television. If you're doing this to be famous, if you're doing this to be a celebrity, then you've got the wrong reasons to be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, look, all the Kardashians, God bless them, you know, but they had a base. They had a certain level of fame before they became even more famous. And look, they're obviously bright women who have taken that fame and leveraged it into real entrepreneurship. But I think a lot of people get into this for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
You know, fame is fine, but it's not the reason to do it.
Yeah. In media, obviously, you know, with all the tools you just mentioned and so many more, things have changed quite a bit. We're in a culture where finding the absolute truth is very difficult. You know, some would say that the truth is under a bit of an attack. I wonder how that's affected your day job and how you think about, you know, where truth lives and how you deliver the news. And
I don't even think about the alternative. To me, especially in weather and environment, it's science. There's nothing political about what we do. You know, I'm very proud we've established the NBC News Climate Unit, and we have brought to bear, and you know, we have a number of different facets throughout NBC, from business to climate to medical to all these different units that are funneling through, and because our climate affects everything, and so this is not about, oh, it's a right wing or a right or left issue. Here are the facts. Here's what's happening to our climate. And believe it or not, you can call it what you want, but these things are happening. And anybody who says otherwise is dealing in falsehoods and lies. There's no way around it. There are no credible scientists who believe that our climate isn't changing. This is fact.
Yeah.
These are demonstrable, proven facts. And it's affecting us both economically, medically, environmentally. And if we don't do something about it, we are going to reach a tipping point if we haven't come very close already. And we're not going to be able to turn it back. So, you know, the whole idea of truth, and there are, you know, organizations that don't deal in facts and deal in more political tinged information, and good for them, you know, but they do it at their own peril.
You don't pay attention.
No, I don't even give it a second thought.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for spending so much time with us. It's great to hear the lesser known side of Al Roker. For people who want to follow Al, you can follow him at Al Roker. You're going to be on the Blacklist tonight on NBC.
Yes, 8 p.m. It's kind of weird because I'm playing myself, and the premise would be then that Al Roker, the fun weatherman on the Today Show, knows an international criminal, in the likes of Raymond Red Reddington, and is friends with him. It's very bizarre, but it's very exciting because I love the show. So it's been a hoot.
It sounds like another thing that an opportunity arose and you said yes.
Yes, exactly. It was the same. You mentioned earlier Broadway. My agent called, the theatrical agent. I'm part of William Morris Endeavor, and one of their theatrical agent called and said, "Hey, I just got a call from the folks at Waitress. They would want to know if you'd want to appear in the show." And I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be hunky Dr. Vomither, right?" No, they want you to play Old Joe. Old Joe. But I said, they know I don't sing, right? Well, why don't you go see the show? And I took my daughter Leela, who went to LaGuardia Performing Arts, and she was a musical theater major. And I said, "Sweetie, I can't do this." She goes, "Dad, yes, you can. You can talk on pitch. You can absolutely do this. How many times can you say you've been on Broadway?" And so I said yes, and I took voice lessons, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
You certainly come across as very confident, ready to go. I mean, how terrified were you the first time you stepped on stage there?
Oh my God. I don't know who has seen the play, but the musical, but the opening number is happening, and there's a set piece, the kitchen, that kind of rotates out into onto the stage, and I have to place myself there for my entrance after the opening number. And we're in the middle of the opening number, and all of a sudden I went completely blank. I couldn't remember my first line, and it was too late. I couldn't go back to the dressing room where my script was. I should have maybe brought it out with me, and left it on a table or something. But 30 seconds before my appearance, I couldn't remember my opening lines. I'm panicking, and then it just clicked in, and I went out, and it was fine. But for a good 45 seconds, the world had stopped for me.
Feels like an eternity, I'm sure.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This community, the New Jersey Tech Council community, is community of entrepreneurs and innovators who are, who join us often to learn and find inspiration, but also represent a community of people who want to help. We run a big festival called the Propelify Innovation Festival, which is about propelling ideas into action. So my last question for you is, what can we do to help you or a cause you believe in?
I think just be involved. I think, I don't, a lot of times people think, "Oh, I've got to give a lot of money. I got to do that." I think getting involved, offering of yourself, of time to take part in something as simple as, I'm so moved by people who have, dusted off their sewing machines and are making masks for frontline responders, or tech companies that are taking 3D printers and repurposing them to make PPE. There's a greater good that is pretty amazing.
It doesn't take much. I mean, my daughter's put signs in the window, and just something to bring a smile to somebody's day, I think collectively makes a big difference.
The idea of hanging out a window at 7 o'clock and banging pots and pans, or walking by and applauding, at your local hospital at 7 o'clock, and keeping a safe distance, and applauding those frontline healthcare workers, including we don't think about the people who have, everybody says the economy has stopped. That's not really completely true, because there are people who are out there in these meat packing plants who are keeping our food chain going. There are truck drivers. There are delivery people. They're still working. They're still, really, in a sense, putting their lives at risk to keep this country going as best it can.
Yeah.
So
parts of the economy are alive and well, but we're not set up to be fully remote. So obviously lots of the country is obviously struggling dramatically. And you've probably heard the metaphor of, we're not quite all in this together. We're all in the same storm, but in very, very different boats. While I feel, enormously fortunate to be home with my kids and getting a lot of
Yes.
family time, I think, I know you've talked about the upside of that as well. I'm acutely aware of the people who are dramatic, struggling dramatically and don't have the same boat, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot of them aren't even in the boat. They're at the dock. There's some 40% of folks who don't have access to the internet. Now, how are their children supposed to do online learning?
That's right.
This has really exposed a lot, and once that genie's out of the bottle, I think we are compelled as a nation to try to right these things.
Yeah. Well, I hope that our tech community is inspired by not just this conversation, by the pandemic, to be the innovators who come up with the solutions that create more access for all. That's a really important part of our mission, is that we create the future for all. But Al, first of all, watch Al tonight on NBC on the Blacklist. Check out alrokerentertainment.com, where you probably haven't spent that much time, but they actually put out some really great content. Get the book over the summer. You look so much better in person, but don't actually say that to Al in person, because it's not very nice. And join us for other New Jersey Tech Council events. I hope, Al, you'll join us hopefully in the future, ideally in person in Hoboken. That we would love to have you. I think in talking about opportunity and saying yes to things, this is clearly a thing that you are willing to lend your time to others in this unique format, and we're enormously grateful for it. Next week on the council, with our shows, we have the Vonage CEO. We've got quite a few other things planned over the next several weeks. Check out njtc.org and become a member if you're not yet already. But more importantly, follow Al. And so the last thing we do is, usually at our live events, one of my signature moves is I have everyone stand up and high five their neighbor. We can't do that physically, but we can do it digitally. So before we sign off, and I know that for all of you sitting at home, this always feels a little weird, but we're going to draw this small sense of community for a moment. When I say 3, before we sign off, I'm going to high five the camera. Hope, Al, you'll high five me back.
Sure.
Look forward to seeing you on air very soon. But again, really honored that you spent some time with us today. I really appreciate it. Follow Al on Twitter and all the other social media where you can find you'll continue to see the real, authentic Al Roker. But enjoy your time with the family and keep doing you.
Thank
all right.
you.
1, 2, 3, high five. Boom.
Hey now.
Thanks a lot, Al. Be well.
All righty, Aaron. Take care.